Good morning, everyone. Nice to see so many of you here. We are going to have a seminar about build your brand and how to build your brand. Buildpix, we are a vendor of publishing software in Sweden, and we are with our co-host Photorare do this seminar this morning. So please, our first speaker, Mr. Paul Jones Winlund, Foresight Manager at Tieto, Sweden, will give us 30 minutes of foresight.
I will indeed. Thank you. So, good morning, everyone. How do I... This is a good start. Let me just start with... I work with a lot of brands, Swedish and international brands, and it's all about looking into the future. Where are we going? What tech do we need to invest in? What do our customers think of us? What do you think they think of us, they ask me. And I normally say, well, I think they don't give a shit about your brand until they do. Okay, so there's something about that. I was asked to come here to speak about tech in retail, and absolutely, there you go, there's a tech. These are the latest trends, you can look them up on the internet. The whole point about this is that where do you start with tech? We can talk about cobots, we can talk about robots running around in big stores now, scanning all the shelves. We can talk about, you go into a Kentucky Fried Chicken in China and you look up at the camera and smile, it recognizes you and you pay. So there are so many innovations today that are realized, and the whole point is that most brands are realizing now that tech doesn't matter unless you have a purpose. And this is really what I'm going to talk about today. So, well, let's have a look at this. It's okay to laugh. So what did we see? Well, some of the world's most famous non-existing brands. But we felt something, didn't we? So what did we feel? Probably confusion. So if they're non-existent, how can we be confused? And that is because it's all about emotions. I mean, the images that we saw, they contact emotions that we have with a real brand. So that's the first that hits us, and we get that feeling. So it could be a nice and warm feeling, or it could be an agitated feeling because you had a bad call with our customer support. And then afterwards, the rational thought comes along and says, well, get that feeling away because you shouldn't feel it, because what you're seeing is not right. So what this is proof for is that the emotions that we have connected to a brand are so much stronger than all the market communication most brands are pumping out today. So that is lesson number one. It's all about the experience. And this is why what we call CX strategy, customer experience strategy, is so important. It's vital for the brands. But we need to understand more things because, I mean, there's a big shift happening. You read media today, you see that who the hell do I trust today? I mean, who are we going to listen to? Okay, we all know this brand, don't we? Big brand, global, massive amount of budgets. What about this one? Träna med Vilma. Ever heard of her? No. She engages you in training. So she records 3 times a week on how she's training in her room and improving her training skills. And she's teaching others. They're trying to sell gear to you. 3 years ago, this girl here, she had the same market impact as Nike had on the Swedish market. Right? That's 3 years ago. And if you look today, Markiplier, 19.7 million followers. 13 How many followers did you think Nike have? 800,000. Who are you going to listen to? Well, I'm going to listen to the people where all my friends are and where everyone else is. Yeah. So this is something that's happening now, and we need to understand it. But we also need to understand the mechanisms behind all of this, because it's not just about marketing and trying to, should we say, form people's opinions, because brands, they've had their chance. I mean, we're coming from the era of brands. This is where all the brands had the budgets, they owned the channels, they controlled the communication out to the market, right? But then we have the era of individuals and influencers, social media. I mean, consumers are revolting. YouTubers, they can reach millions. Suddenly there's a shift, and all the brands are saying, what the hell? What can we do? And I can tell you, it's not about continuing what you've been doing. It's about something else, because we've also now in this area, I mean, you've read the media about Cambridge Analytica, what's happening in China with social scoring and how they're actually following and tracking people. So there's a lot of distrust that is happening. If we look at Edelman's trust barometer, we can see that social media and politicians, they're rock bottom when it comes to trust. And people are kind of looking to the well-known brands saying, please step up, sort this shit out. This is what they're saying. So that's where we are. And this is where we now believe that we're moving into something that is called era of crowds. It's the network economy. It's about the gig economy. It's where the big brands not continue, for example, like Elon Musk, to build something up and then say, hey, I'm going to have even more. Maybe a bit more like Bill Gates or other brands to step up and say, okay, it didn't work so well. We need to be more ethical. We need to be more sustainable. So what are we going to do? Well, we have to step up, because if we've been a part of this consumer era, the era of consumption, then we also need to be a part of maybe clearing this stuff up. So this is what we're seeing now. But it's all about trust, yeah? But if I'm going to build trust, then I need to start off by being transparent. If I'm not transparent, you're not going to trust me. But if I'm going to be transparent, I need to be transparent about something that is credible. So if an oil company now goes out and says, we're going to be transparent and we're going to save the world from all this that has happened, we're going to say, you're not credible, right? So these 3 pointers, credibility, transparency, and trust, this is what you have to start working with from where you are today, but you need to start building it gradually, building it over time, so that one day you actually can say, we're going to take the responsibility. But it's also about inclusion, because now we're past the era of influencers, meaning that we people, we want to be a part, and if you're not letting me in, I'm not going to buy into you. Yeah? Does anyone know of the brand Gymshark? Well, it's gym clothes for teenagers, yeah? They started off with really having an opinion that all the gyms, you know, where everyone's building the big muscles and it's all about the macho alpha culture, they said, we don't want that. We want it, it's about us. So they invited their audience, and they're growing, and they started with stickers and a community, and it ended up with, well, I think they're in 130 countries now, selling clothes, and are starting to pose a threat towards Nike. So this is what's happening now. So I'm going to go through a few examples. Swedish market, yeah, retail, Axel Jonsson. You know this brand in Sweden. The most fantastic part about it is that they've actually gone out now and said that in 10 years' time, 50% of our revenue is going to come from things that we don't even understand today. And this is what they're saying to their shareholders. So we're seeing that brands are making bold statements. And they're not going to do this without transparency, without credibility, without trust. And they're not going to do it without you. So this is where we're now seeing a shift in brands. I'm going from the old to actually taking responsibility. And the brands that don't take responsibility, well, they will be a has-been brand. Anyone know this company? A different type of technology company. they realized that we're in deep shit if we don't do anything, because they came from the old in retail. And they invested in loads of technology, buying startups, but they had a rule when they bought a startup. They said, we're not going to do the old way of buying up a startup and taking them in, and then we're saying, you become us. We're saying, we buy a startup, and then you learn us to become you. So they buy startups for understanding new technology. They buy startups for understanding new customer behaviors to reach new customers. Our people, one of the hardest things today for a modern company is actually employing people, finding people and employing them, because people don't want to come to brands until they do want to come to the brand. So they're reschooling. They've started a university and they're reschooling their own staff and investing back into them, and they're raising their wages to make sure that, okay, if we're going to ask from you, then we're going to make sure that we're also putting in. And also eco-relations. They realize we can't do everything ourselves. We have to collaborate with other partners. So we're going to see an increase of cooperation between brands. Who do you think this is? Well, it's the world's largest retailer, Walmart, making such radical changes that you probably wouldn't expect from a brand like that. And they went as far as last year, their legal name was Walmart Stores Incorporation, but now it's Walmart Incorporation. And they say, we're now a technology company. I don't think they're living up to it all the way yet, but at least going out saying that means that we mean business. Yeah? Waze. Anyone know Waze? Yeah, it's a carpooling app. It's like Google Maps, but I can contribute telling them where I am. I'm sitting in a traffic jam, and I say, hey, there's a traffic jam here, and then I'm telling all my people, all my friends that don't drive here. So this is how it started. And now they've got enough crowds, so now they're saying, well, let's put a vision out there. Let's put the vision out saying that if we've got 5 cars out on the street driving, each one has 1 driver each, that's not a bad thing for our environment. So what we do is, our mission is to make sure that those 5 people go together and hop in 1 car instead. So we're reducing the amount of cars in our traffic, polluting our environment. So people are flocking because they want to be part of this. This is something they can believe in. And what they say is that Waze is a way of teaching us, they say, the owners, teaching us how not to see our customers just as pure wallets, but also to be an energy for something much greater and bigger, so that we can create sustainable customer relationships. And we also respect that without our customers' input, we don't have a product. We have the technology, but we don't have a product. Yeah? Who owns them? Largest money-making machine in the world. Because they realize that they've been contributing towards breaking the world, and now they're realizing that we have to do other things, and the only way of doing that is learning from people who actually understand this. Yeah? Clas Ohlson in Sweden, they're doing the same. Did you know that they bought 10% of Mathem? Why? Well, for starters, Mathem have sold with home delivery. Clas Ohlson are many, many steps behind. How are they going to keep up? No, we can collaborate with them. And if people are still buying their groceries, why shouldn't they also get their batteries and the lamps and so forth? So this is a way of starting the journey with ecosystems. But what they're also doing is that Mathem now are also saying that we can take all your empty bottles and everything for recycling. So they're taking a bigger responsibility. That makes them more attractive. That's only step 1. Step 2. Clas Fixare, which is going to be launched this year. So suddenly Clas Ohlson can also say, but if we are coming home to you, why don't we also come in and we help you to put that shelf together or hang those lights up or help you with stuff. So they're diverting from their original business idea because they realize that it's not just about money in the original business idea. It's also about how we become a more important player in our customers' lives, everyday lives. Right? And if they would take the route of saying, but we're going to do it for cheap price and we have cheap labor and child labor and so forth, no one's going to buy from them. So they've in this business model, they're also infusing what we call sustainability and ethic ways of working. Yeah, I'll do this one. This is interesting. Rent a Runway. Have you heard of this company? They realized that people love fashion, but when it comes to fashion, I mean, anyone, or a lot of people that are into fashion, they would like a Ralph Lauren or whatever, but who can afford it? So they realized that, okay, so if we tap into the passion of people who love fashion, but don't have the means to always wear the fashion, we rent them the clothes. So this was the initial idea that they had, and they're renting out clothes, but then they started using technology to collect the data. Because when you rent things out, when you get it back, you need to clean it, you need to inspect it, you need to repair it, and you need to make it look brand new so that the next customer gets it will have that brand new feeling. So they're collecting so much data that they realize that we know more about the brands, the usage, when, where, but also where they break, how we can improve the products, how we clean them in the best way. All this is now becoming services to fuse back to the clothing industry. So that's one thing that they're doing, but what they're also doing is that their long-term vision is that let's start sharing. Let's not just make stuff, wear it once, throw it away. Okay, so this is the drive with their customers. This is New York. This is what we call car carousels for space. So instead of one car in each space, you can have maybe 10 cars in each space. Now, Alibaba took it further. You know of Alibaba, the great Chinese. They said to Ford, why don't we collaborate? What we'll do is that we'll take the risk, we'll build these, and then because we're collecting so much data about our customers that we know who are the risky ones and who are the secure ones, who are the good drivers and bad drivers and so forth. So all this data is that they can then pinpoint customers who they believe are very close to buying a new car, and they say, borrow a car for the weekend for free and drive down to this town and live in the hotel for free. So you do it. And then what they're seeing now is that the percentages of people buying cars from this experience is going up. So it's a cheaper way than the mass communication that Ford has to do to reach these people. So we're seeing better use because we understand the customers better through all this technology. So this is what's happening. And they're also revolutionizing the way from factory to market. So they're disrupting it. Amazon. Do you all know that they're entering the Swedish market? Yeah? And you all know that they've actually placed themselves here, not like Facebook up in north, but here. Why would they do that? It's not about server halls and stuff like that. It's about logistics. It's about delivering. This is going to be the platform that's going to be built up. So when they take their delivery logistics that they're fine-tuning, you know, the last mile, delivering from you ordering all the way to where you are, this is what they're going to do. What do you think most Swedish retailers are thinking now? When they enter the market and they're pushing the prices down and their portfolio is so much bigger, and they're also going into B2B. So now for companies that are buying everything from filters to whatever, coffee machines, they've got that on their shelves as well. So what are the Swedish brands going to do? Cater for the local. That's what they're going to do. They're going to make sure that, I mean, if you buy something via Amazon, I don't know how it's been produced. I don't know who's been producing it, but I know it's cheap. And if it's cheap, not so good for the environment, maybe. So maybe this is where the Nordic brands have to make a stand. Yeah? Vardagspuls. Who knows of Vardagspuls? No? Well, you should know it. It's Sweden's largest community for health, well-being and food. And it's all about I get free content, I get to meet other people, I get information about how I'm going to train, I can talk to others on how I'm going to train, and we can meet up and we can go for runs together, and we can plan how we cook food, and it's a community. Great. Who does this? What the fuck? Arla. Well, of course. Arla sells milk to shops. Shops have customer relations. Okay, they had 100% of the dairy shelf. Now they probably have 15-20%, right? The Arla bosses are saying, develop new products, more attractive products, get the prices down. But we don't know. We don't know the customers. We have no customer relations, right? How do we take ourselves out of this? Well, we need to start building customer relations. So Vardagspulse is a way of them to reach thousands and thousands and thousands of people of the right target group who are into food and health and training. And by doing that, we can also understand how we are going to produce better products for them. So that's a short-term move. The long-term move is that if we gain so many customers, maybe we should actually not just sell dairy products. Maybe we should do something else from a credible perspective. Suddenly they have a platform to set new long-term strategies that can build customer relationships. Yeah? And how do you get there? So, yeah, I'll do this one as well. You know Ullared. I mean, we laugh at Ullared and we think, oh my God, who goes there? Who goes there and buys? But the thing is, a hell of a lot of people do it. And Ullared, when they started, they said, well, we're not going to compete with ICAs and Coops and so forth. We're going to compete with, I don't know, Liseberg and Kolmården and all these places where people go to hang. Now, the interesting part that most people don't know is that if you look at the big ICAs and Coops and Lidl and so forth, they have a profit margin of somewhere between 0.5% and 1.5%. What do you think the profit margin of GK's Ullared is? Last year, 9.2%. 9.2%. Low price, but that's not where they're making the money. Do they need to do any marketing? People are coming on buses and aeroplanes and you name it. So I'd like to finish with, okay, so I'm saying a lot of things are happening and we are seeing big disruption in customer relationships. But what the hell should brands do? And I think the first thing is to do is you have to realize that you're making two parallel journeys. One is we have an existing business model and we need to protect it and we need to invest in technology and we need to make it efficient. We need to bring the cost down and we need to bring the customer base up and we need to sell more. But at the same time, this is actually going against what people believe in, because if we're pushing consumer society, then we're also saying that we don't give a shit what's going to happen to our next generation. We're in it for the money. Yeah. So that's really a dead end, long-term wise. We know that now. We've got a hiccup in what's happening in the world, but it's a dead end. But we need to do that because anyone that buys from you guys, well, they're measured in certain ways, so we have to respect that. But the second journey is about experimenting, it's about testing, it's about being crazy in a sense to forget what we were brought up to think and start thinking new ways. How can we, from where we are with our brand, what we stand, our values, how can we in a credible way start building up something new? So that's what we have to do. So two journeys. And then we have to realize that forget about trying to find the answer. There is no answer of where we will be in 3 years, in 5 years, because in 3 years you could be dead. So we have to maybe shift that focus to a new mindset, which means, okay, if I'm not going to understand where we are going to be, maybe I should start looking at how I should relate to changing. So how we see and look upon change, this is what brands need to start doing. And then they need to dare collaborate, not saying, this is us, this is you, and we build a wall between us. It's all about, all right, let's do it together and see what happens. And if it works, it doesn't matter if we go together or. So we need to start thinking more partnerships, more ecosystems. We need to think about how we can be more transparent. And if we're going to do that, so from a marketing perspective, how do we handle this chaos with our customers? Yeah. So this is a question that we need to pose. And then the last thing really is, you don't own your brand. Your brand is a result of what your customers think of your brand. So your customers really own your brand. Yeah. So this is a new way of seeing on how we invest in having dialogues with our customers. How do we invite them? How do we address content, ethics, quality? And then also that craziness in the passion of your customers. Does it work? Look at the gaming industry. Did you know how big the gaming industry is growing? Esports and so forth. But this is actually coming from, if we go 10 years back, when Steam platform, have you heard of the Steam platform? Well, if you're a gamer, you know what it is. It's a community where I can game, but I can do so much more things there. And they give me tools to live my passion. So people that are on Steam, if you look, I think they've got about 120, 130 million regular users. And on any given night, the users that are online, only 25% of them are playing games. So although it's a gaming platform, only 25% are playing games. The rest of them are doing things. But what they're doing is they're modding, they're helping game developers to build better games. So they're a part of it. And this is how you can get these Fortnite games that become so big, because the brands invited the gamers and say, you show us the way, we facilitate it. We maintain security and quality and ethics and sustainability and all of this. But we facilitate. So what we're really saying here is that brands need to start giving up on the control and start facilitating the passion in your customers. So that is the message that I would like to leave with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
Any questions or?
Yes, please welcome, if any.
No? Okay.
Breathtaking.
Oh,
obviously.
thank you.
Yes, thank you. So we say welcome to Mr. Yes, one question, sorry.
Yeah, could you just define social innovation so I know where you are?
Yes, so let's say like IT industry can get involved with getting the people who are looking for the job.
Yeah.
And then teach them the new skills,
Yeah.
for example, programming.
Yeah.
And that is like for me social innovation.
Yeah.
Any other examples or?
And examples of social innovation, or what my view is.
Yes, if you have heard about like companies getting interested in those types of.
Yeah, I think most companies are getting interested because we know that the old way of learning doesn't work anymore. And we're seeing, I mean, all these whiz kids, where the hell did they come from? And because we're looking at where did they come from, we're understanding that they outside the traditional system are teaching each other. It's their passion driving them. Yeah, I think it's all about the brand's view on control. Do they want to control the dialogue, or do they, as some of the other brands, actually let go of control but facilitate? And I think the facilitation now is proven that if you just give the tools, then people will learn what they need to learn, because what we know is that what we tell you should learn in school and university and so forth doesn't necessarily have to be right for what we need in the future, because it's what we call cross skills that need to be addressed, and you don't get that when you're learning something. One example is one of the ex-deans of I can't remember his name, from MIT, started, one of the founders of TED Talks and So what they did was that they did an experiment where they gave technology, easy technology, to a village in Africa, but to children. And it was computers, and they got access to the internet. That was about it. And they left them there for 6 months. And when they came back, the older kids were teaching the younger kids on how to use the computers. And they're thinking, how the hell did they figure it out? How did they know how to access and how did they, and so forth. And they were using language, and they were teaching English. So what we realize is that humans have a tendency to, if they want something, they'll do it. So you need to, and this is really the message, that the set way we're trained to think is not necessarily right, which means that you can't have a brand trying to dictate how we should learn skills in a company, whereas I think you should more maybe facilitate and tap into all those passionate that want to do it. That's, I know it's very vague, but this is, I think, where it's going to go. I mean, yeah, I think, for example, Walmart is one brand because they realized that we have people who've been trained to do a certain thing, and suddenly we're expecting so much more in a different way. And I think their journey, what they're doing, is probably, I think if you look into it, then social learning is probably going to be a big component, because you can't have you teach someone who's going to teach someone who's going to teach someone. You need to let people teach each other, but you facilitate the material and the expectations and so forth. So I can imagine, but I don't. No, I don't think big companies like that are there, for the simple reason that they're measured in a different way. And before they can make such a radical change, they have to maybe say, okay, everyone shouldn't be measured on 100% billable hours, for example. It's more about, if you're billable 80% of your time and 20% of your time you can use for non-billable things, such as either working with self-development or learning, or just engaging in communities, activities, social activities in communities. So I think it's a mindset for the bigger brands. So I think smaller startups have it in their DNA. They get someone in and oh, you don't know that, I'll teach you. So it's there in how we work in smaller companies. But in the large companies, I don't think they're there yet. You would look at them and say, you should be there, but they're not. I don't think they are. That's my opinion. Yes.
I think the hackathons where they let developers come and
Yeah.
find, like Stockholm City has a hackathon where they invite young programmers, and where they go up and say, here is open source data that you can use.
Yeah.
So they have seminars on how to use the interfaces, and then they have a competition where I think this is very similar.
Yeah. 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 But Google are not threatened in the way that many brands are, so that's why the other brands. Yeah. But it's not just about programming. That's my point is, and why I don't think brands are ready, because if you just look at programming, yeah, but look at Elon Musk. I mean, intelligent guy, but where is he heading, and what's the ethics about it, and so forth. So learning is about not just the skill, it's about how you use it, and how you use it in a sustainable and ethical way. And where do you learn that? I'd say go to startups where you don't have the rigid structures, and hope that the founders have a more ethical mindset, maybe. I think you're into something that is very difficult to actually say this is how it's going to be. I think it's something we need to address more, because the world needs more of spreading of knowledge rather than containing knowledge. I mean, we see in dictatorships, you contain knowledge, you're not allowed to read as much. That leads to control of people, right? So it's big questions, but I'm not sure if we're ready yet.
Okay,
Right.
thank you. And now to the user case. Mr. Pontus Wallin is going to tell us about how they took control of the digital asset management and centralized it into Stockholm. Please, welcome.
Okay, thank you. Okay, hello everyone. I'm Pontus Wallin. I'm going to talk about how we work with central image distribution within Thomas Cook. I'm the head of image and film for Thomas Cook. In Sweden, it's Ving, but we work for whole Europe from our Stockholm office with images, and I'm going to talk about how we built up an image archive within the group. I have a team of 14 people. What we are doing, it's mainly photographers, color retouchers, and image editors. We're sourcing all hotel and destination images for Thomas Cook. All our hotels, it's about 12 to 20,000 hotels, depending how you count, and a lot of destinations all over the world. Today I'm going to talk about our digital asset management migration from we had in Europe we have different offices, and everyone had their own image archive, and I will tell you about how we did to get into one centralized. The reason why we wanted to do this, it's we had an extremely difficult and it's a hard word, inefficient handling of images within the group. We have several offices doing the same work, contacting the same hotels, sourcing the same images, and actually we could send the photographer from Germany, from England, and from Sweden at the same time to a hotel and had to take the same photos and bring them home. So lots of extra cost and duplications of work within the group. And also frustration from customers. When they entered like thomascook.com, they couldn't find a hotel and see all the images. And then they couldn't find the hotel with another name and another set of images. It was very confusing because they say, isn't that the same hotel? But they couldn't know because we didn't have the organization and the systems around it so we could look at it. So we decided that we should do something about this. But it's a big company, it's about 30,000 employees. So it's a lot of bureaucracy and stuff like that. And where should the office be? Should it be in Stockholm? Should it be spread all over Europe? Or should we have it in London or Frankfurt? So we started to look at several firms doing digital asset management. And we also looked at the ones that were working, because in the Nordic countries, we have been working with the same company for 16 years, because we did actually exactly the same thing. We had one office in Stockholm and Helsinki, Copenhagen earlier. So we had to see, how can we do this? Our key objectives for this project was to harmonize all types of content across markets. It should be high quality and simple ways of working. We should have one group team taking care of all image requests. It should have simplified architecture, how it works with the images. And reduce manual work and do as much automation as possible. The thing we want to do, we have a lot of data sources. We have like text admin where we have all the text and facts. We have different external sources. It could be weather coming from SMHI, for example, or others to the websites. We have to build up the world in a content management systems, so you know where all the destinations and where all the hotels are. So we created an API that was working with all the different systems and like PhotoWeb, where we have all the images. Because that's the system we choose to work with, because it works so well with Nordics. So we created an API that got the images and videos from PhotoWeb, and then all the different channels that we are working with are talking to the API. It could be web sales catalogs and printed materials, everything. The key factors doing a success when you're doing a big dam migration project, it's to have a well-defined data source. Well-defined data model. First, I told you we had difficulty with the hotels being different. We didn't even know how many hotels we sold because there were so many different contracts. So first, we came up with a master hotel ID and started to say, this is the hotel. This is where the image is set and where the facts and the text should be placed. So that sounds quite basic, but it wasn't for us because we have so many different companies coming together. And all communications with outlying systems, webs and catalogs are made to event-based architecture. It's with sending messages to the API. So just when something happened, we're telling the API, here something has happened, and they have to pick it up. Metadata is what we're working with for the images. We have metadata sets for driving, how images works, and also how to find them for customers, but I will come back to that. But the important lesson here is take time understanding the architecture and how it works. Because if you do a good time work and say this is how it will work from adding an image until it comes up to the websites, it's harder to change something when you're all done. So do the pre-work. When I talk about metadata, we have two different kinds of metadata. It's very important, I think, it's have for the users, like marketing departments, we have the descriptive fields like creator, keywords for geographical, easy stuff for if you're in marketing and want to find a hotel, so you can browse images and find whatever you want. But we also want to have the mechanical side or automated side for publishing in websites and catalogs. So then we also have functional fields, like what type of images is this? Is it a hotel destination, room images, or a room sketch, or something like that? And the master ID. We also have something called workflow status. Is this image live or is it just published? So you can decide in the metadata fields of the images where in the chain they will end up. We also have something we call the keyword category. It's not something the users can see. So we have Latin here, like Agente Ventrinos. It's just, this means this is a hotel images, but you can also use it for destination because this is probably Dalaman, Marmaris. So even if this is from a hotel, when we call it Trinos, it means that it also ends up in the destination archive. And Argentum, this is probably one of our art directors really likes these images, and then we know if you don't know what to use, you can only use the one we are calling favored. So we have a functional field that's called favored, and then they find all the images, so you don't have to think yourself. But it's not just about data models and technology. The main challenges is cultural differences between countries. When we started up this, we had one office in every country in Europe that wanted to say, oh, I have always chosen my images for my hotel. I can do it much better than you. a lot of work put into this is doing manuals and guidelines. What is a good hotel images? What is a good destination images? Who are our stakeholders? Where should the images be used? So really lot doing the visual languages and get buy-in from the stakeholders. So go around to see all the offices and all the ones working with this, and this is how we want it to look like. This is how it should look like. And to do this, do not focus on the what we do different. Focus on the similarities. Actually, if you are a family going for a holiday to Mallorca in Germany or in Sweden, they have a lot. Most of the needs are actually the same. There's just a little percentage that are different between the different countries if you are in the same segment. So find what we do similar. Then it's much. You will see that it's much more that is similar than it's different, and focus on this. So what we did is we use PhotoWeb, and actually more or less out of the box solution. We have some very standardized PhotoWeb set up with different archives for different brands, different hotel images, resort images, and videos. But some things we thought we wanted to develop ourselves because make it easy for us. For example, we wanted to have an upload tool because even though you can upload images direct to PhotoWeb, we wanted to do it easier for all doing uploads from all over the world, not being inside or firewall. And also to provide metadata from underlying systems like facts that we wanted to add to metadata to the images. We developed a sorting tool, helped us get a visual of how we are sorting hotel images, how it ends up in the websites. And all this is done through talking to the PhotoWeb API. As an example, it's very easy layout. It's more or less just add in the master hotel ID and you get some information from the other systems, and then you just upload the images. And we also made this sorting tool. Same here, it's nothing fancy developed with the colors and everything. It's more or less but just these are the images that are live for this hotel, and this is the sorting order, drag and drop. And I don't want this image on the website. I just take it down to the published, and then you just can see it in the PhotoWeb, for example. But the migration, that's the biggest thing when you're getting different systems to align together. We actually we had 3 big systems within the group, one in Frankfurt called CMI, one in the UK called STEP, and the other Nordic one. So when we got a hotel, they sent us all they got. At some of the hotels, we got 100, 200, maybe 300 images, and we didn't know if they were accurate or not, but they got them. It was duplicates and triplicates and even more because they just sent us everything because they didn't want to collaborate in the beginning. So I take care of this. Yeah, you manage. We had an assumption we should handle 3,500 hotels. It turned out to be 12,000. Instead of 50,000 images, we're now up to 400,000 images. But the images that came through, it's so much, it was much more than 400,000 because we had all these extra images that we had to go through. And also, we had a time frame for 6 months to do this. And instead of this, it happens, we have to do it, be ready in 2 months because we have the catalogs that's going to print in Germany. So we really had to hurry up. So how did we do? We hired a lot of extra students. We just went out to send out an email. Hi, does anybody know any students that can come in to work for us? And then sat in a room like this and just looking at hotel by hotel. Okay, this is duplicate. This one looks old. This one looks old. So this was the biggest work in man hours. And to teach these new students, or the students that haven't worked with this, we showed them this manual. This is how we want it to look like. We want it to be big pool images, sunny weather, clean interiors. It should look like El Interior or something like this. This is our hotels. People are going on a holiday. They wanted to picture themselves in a nice environment. And the images we got from, and this is not a joke. They actually sent us these images for the hotels, and said this is what we're selling these hotels with. And first of all, we thought, okay, they are sending us old images, but then we went into the websites in Neckermann, Germany, and actually found them. So then we understand why we had so much cultural debates of what's a good image is before. Yeah. What happened? It turned out quite well. We deleted like hundreds of thousands of images, and we have started sourcing new ones and to get them up to get one common image language within the whole group. And I don't believe you have watched our websites through Europe, but now we are actually pretty aligned. There's still a long way to go. We have about 1,500 users using PhotoWeb, but not daily, but in the system there are 1,500 that can access our images. Around 12,000 hotels today, but we are shrinking that because we should focus on our most important 4,000 hotels. At the moment, 400,000 images. We have one single sourcing. If a hotel wants to change an image in a website anywhere in Europe, they contact my team and we do it. And about 50 minutes later, we have changed the images on the websites. And what we have seen in this project, the students we hired, it was about 15 that helped us. 4 of them are still working with us, so it's great. We found new employees that we haven't thought about, but we found if you find a good person that works for you, I think it's good to find a job for them instead of the other way around. So take care of the ones that are really working. We have very efficient work now. And we have built a structure for the next steps. From now, we can add volumes and increasing volumes because now it's one hotel. We have the framework and the processes in place. And the challenges are still the cultural ones. We have to work with the educational of what is a good image, why do we use these kind of images, and why can't we listen to hoteliers? Because hoteliers always send us images and say, this is how it looks like, but actually we know the market much better and are closer to the customer than the hoteliers are. So the main challenges are still working with our imagery and get it together. So this is what I was going to talk about. So thank you. Yeah. Any questions?
Thank you, Pontus. Any questions? Crystal clear.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And so welcome to Radmila Milenkovic. She is the head of digital communication in PhotoWare. And Radmila, what are you going to talk about?
Can you guys hear me? Yeah, I'm wired. Perfect. Thank you for the introduction, Krister. And I hope people has woken up now by that time. I see all of you quiet, some falling asleep, dreaming away in these paradise pictures. Well, I'm going to start by saying something. Your brand can't afford to stand for nothing. Frankly, it needs to be even more human than ever before. And why do I choose to talk about branding? Well, after some years spent in marketing, after even specializing and researching further into branding, I realized that many companies put the technology first in strategies. They think of, we're going to get that awesome tool, we're going to get out on board, that's going to drive our strategy. We're going to think digital transformation, and that's the future ahead. But instead, we need to start thinking, taking a step behind, and actually start thinking, what does our brand stand for? So I hope that you can leave that session with at least tips that worked very well for my team, and that I kind of accepted that be my tips from my experiences, and I hope that you can take them home and straight away start working with them and your team. But I would like to start with by highlighting a few trends. Some trends that specifically I picked out for a few reports in technology that are from Accenture and KPMG and Forbes. And all those trends were specifically, what is the technology landscape in the retail industry? So starting with, there is a new Internet of something, and that's the Internet of me that people are talking about. We all are familiar with the concept of Internet of Things. But now when we are facing so many screens, the consumer wants the message to be specifically designed for them. They want this experience to feel that is exactly for me. And to be specific, 61% of retailers worldwide are saying that personalization technologies are presenting highest return of investment. And this is like being in the hands of every screen and every place where we meet the consumers is not an easy fact, because we do live in the world of Internet of Things. And there are so many things that are being connected now and being able to present messages and be able to do our marketing to, that they're extremely growing. And to be precise, we're expecting over 50 billion Internet of Things by 2020. I can't even imagine how many would be and what would be that variety even. And they're going to be so precise that I have like a friend that's engineer was telling me that even now when you walk into the store, the beamers are able to tell you which exactly alley you are in. So imagine when we have so many possibilities, how much precision we can have in our targeted messages as marketeers. Voice search. I believe now every one of us have at least used it, but in specifics, over 50% or 58% of consumers have used voice search to actually execute a purchase. And we're having a lot more devices that we're able to execute voice searches. And specifically now there was a report in Norway where the month-to-month growth in sales of those little devices is 200%. So they're entering our homes, but is your brand there when they search for it? Trend number 4, the humans on social media. Yeah, social media is an obvious thing for marketers, and 91% of retail brands are using 2 or more social media channels. So that's taken for granted. But are we able to still remain human? Are we still able to have this personal contact and personal touch when communicating with our potential customers on social media? The task is not easy when we are managing so many channels. Artificial intelligence. No report goes without mentioning artificial intelligence, because now it's part of every industry, of every user case. And what is very interesting, specifically in the retail case, is that artificial intelligence technologies can save up to 90% of operation costs of time when doing cataloging. And I don't know how many of you here in the room or those of you that are watching online are actually experience the pain of cataloging. Yeah, that requires a lot of taking photos from different angles, different sizes, colors, images. At the end, you have a huge volume of images, and being able to kind of organize them smartly so you don't have to actually use naming conventions or anything, so that artificial intelligence can straight away help you do the catalog, it is a time reliever. The other artificial intelligence aspect is, of course, robots. And we're increasingly relying on robots. To to put it in perspective, one of the reports was saying that they were expecting a reduction of 26% annually in the cost of manufacturing robots. Not every robots, but those able to communicate with consumers. This is incredibly reduction in costs. So that would mean that in the near foreseeable future, we'll be able to see robots everywhere in the consumer behavior, or at least in a lot of those stages. So what are those trends telling us? 6 trends that we're seeing in the retail industry. And they are just presenting us with the fact that there are even more channels that we can communicate our brand to. But how do we remain brand consistent? How do we keep our brand in the center? There is another thing that we're observing in those 6 trends, is that in the past, it used to be the retailers that would drive new technology. It used to be the tech companies, the big innovators and conglomerates. But now it's the users, because we're having extremely tech-savvy customers. I don't know if you have been on a concert recently, but this is a picture from a concert around 2006. There is one brave smartphone there. Others are just partying and enjoying and having fun. This is how a concert looks recently. People are experiencing everything through their phones, through technology. And very similar to what Paul Jones was saying earlier from Tieto, we are sharing our brand because they're going to present their feelings and their perspective over your brand through communications, through the filter they apply or the text they put when sharing on social media. And customers are not now longer loyal to one technology, one channel, one media. They tend to change a lot in between. And statistics is saying that the average smartphone user, specifically in Sweden, has installed 39.3 apps. This is incredibly a lot of apps and screens that we're facing. And comparing it to the rest of the world average is 26 apps. So I don't know what you guys are using here in Sweden, but it's a lot of apps. And to be telling from the perspective of I've worked a few years in mobile advertising, and in order to create a commercial that matches each app and space and size of a screen, it requires a lot of time because it requires different image formats, moving images or still or fitting in a certain size and space on those apps. And it is no longer about the big shabam and huge commercial ads. It is actually the trust and transparency that wins the hearts of those tech-savvy customers. We can't no longer enforce authority as brands and expect to win their trust. And power is in the hands of the mass because now every user has a smartphone. And we just learned that they use 39.3 apps. So they are extremely tech-savvy and they have access to all information that they want. And yes, your brand is being shared. So even though we are thinking this is how we want our brand to be perspected, that's how we want to be seen, when it's in the hands of the consumer, they convey their own values and identity with it. And in books, this is something that's totally not new, but it's the brand self and identity. It's a concept where you are having shared your identity with the one of your brand. So for example, I'm creative, therefore I use Apple. I'm a techie, therefore I use Microsoft. And you decide your brands based to match your personal identity. And I'll try to play that video because if there is one example I could think of a brand doing it well, there is definitely Dove. So I hope you can enjoy that.
It was my choice. And now I will question myself for the next few weeks, maybe months.
We had an option of 2 pathways to walk, and they led to 2 doorways.
It was a bit confronting, actually, to be honest. to see these big signs and feeling like you had to choose and be self-conscious of how you perceive yourself and perhaps if it lines up with how the rest of the world perceives you.
I went through the average door.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I didn't even hesitate.
漂亮对我的概念来说，就是像明星那种遥不可及的那种。我走的是一般。
Mas eu acho que é mais porque eu me arrependi da escolha, porque era diferente do que eu vivo, é diferente do que eu sou.
Am I choosing because of what's constantly bombarded at me, what I'm being told that I should accept, or am I choosing because that's what I really believe?
I walked into that door which said average and I didn't feel really good after that because obviously I had rated myself average and nobody else.
Todos os dias eu passo pela porta comum e ontem foi um dia único e eu optei por passar pelo bonita.
I wanted to go through the average door, but my mum just pulled me over to the beautiful door.
It was quite a triumphant feeling. It was like telling the world, I think I'm beautiful.
I just wish more young women realized it.
要是再给我一次机会走那扇门的话，我觉得我应该会选很美的扇门。
I think I would walk through the beautiful door.
Acho que a porta bonita tá completamente aberta para mim.
Maybe I could walk in that door.
You can.
Next time I look into the mirror, I will see somebody really beautiful looking back at me.
Beautiful is a great word. So why not see what's on the other side of that?
I love the smiles in everyone's faces, and this is exactly what Doves wants to achieve. They put the frame. They put the frame, you're beautiful or you're average, trying to incline people that they need to think that way. But then it was the people that constructed the whole message. They put the frame and they let the users decide the brand values. And what is this all telling us? Is that now we have brands and we have super tech consumers and we can't afford to stand for nothing. We need to make a stand for a cause, for a value, for an identity, something that can differentiate us from others. And don't let your brand suffer in those tech-first strategies. One example I want to bring to even one more channel that we are exposing our brand through, our employees. The image background that you're seeing here is from one of our customers at PhotoWare. They're the Wings of Support. It is a private initiative from the employees of KLM, the airlines, where the employees themselves, they communicate the brand. They do campaigns every year, paid on voluntary basis, for building schools and developing areas, and they do that under the brand of KLM. They represent KLM in every single step they make. And that's how they make a stand together for the brand. We've been talking here a lot about different channels. Social media, beamers, Internet of Things, your employees. And there is one thing here. There is a big difference between multi-channel and an omni-channel. I hope that a lot of you in here already are having something in your head of how to differentiate that. But to just simplify it, and I'm not going to test anyone's knowledge, I'm just going to present how I interpret multi-channel versus omni-channel. In the first example, we have a team or a marketing department or an organization filling out information to each channel. So they want to be on social media, they post something on Facebook, they make a press release, they do a TV ad, and they do an e-shop and a website and a blog, and they just publishing information, trying to meet the customer everywhere they are. But instead, because our customer is tech savvy, and because we want to have that trustworthiness with our brand, we need to embrace the omni-channel experience. The difference here is that all the channels are consistent and the user is in the center. Because omni-channel has the goal to improve the user experience in a cross-channel business and content strategy. And the goal of the marketer in an omni-channel world is to provide the customer with one seamless and effortless high-quality experience. So now we all have all those trends that we are facing in today's society. We see that we want to be in an omni-channel world. But how do we do it? So I'm going to share with you now my top 6 tips, as promised in the start, that works very well for our team. And why do I think that that's shared and relevant, since we are not a retail company, we're a tech company? Yeah, we are a tech company, but we do serve 46 countries. We have a partner network, but we have centralized marketing. So everything that comes from our marketing materials come from Oslo, Norway, and then needs to be localized, used in these countries. And we do all of this with a team of 4 or 5 people. And we have a brand with 20 years of history. So here we're talking like a lot of things to consider with every communications we need to do. So how we did it? First and foremost, we needed a brand overview in a kind of central space. We wanted everyone, no matter if it is internal or external, to be able to see everything that can represent our brand. And very often we think about the logo and the commercial, but there is every single image, visual, or text does represent our brand. And being able to quickly identify in one view what is not consistent with your brand values, it is very important. And talking about this overview, we need to have an information across the whole organization of how we are allowed to talk and represent our brand. So the image example here is from one of our customers, that's the San Francisco Ballet. And that's professional photography that we need to respect and use accordingly as we are allowed to. So me being able to publish or unpublish the images whenever I'm given the permissions by a photographer, or being able to have like a clear overview who is allowed to use that photo. Is it for internal only, external? Does our partners allowed to use it, and etc. Talking about control. I know that Paul Jones just told that you have to let go and not have control, but I'm going to tell you you need control. You can decide who to listen to. But my point of control is that you need to see how your files are used in order to have that brand consistency and trust built. And okay, let go to your users, that is very important. But afterwards, being able to preview, do you have the rights to use that photo? Can you set an expiry date of now no longer this photo shoot is eligible, this campaign expires in December? And having this historical overview, it's really powerful. And everyone knows the word GDPR that scares every one of us now. This applies very, very much to GDPR because personal data includes images, because it's a personal data of the person in the photo. And do you have the rights and approval for using it? And one misconception, your brand is not just a logo. Your brand is everything that represents it. So that is even your employees, as in the example of the KLM. And very often when we talk about brand consistency, there is one minor element we forget: our employees and how they present our company. And even the small LinkedIn photo consistency across all your employees does show trustworthiness towards your brand. And continuing on the logo side, your logo is not just a file name, because your logo has a lot more value. And again, referring to mobile advertising, when you have like having to have different format, different sizes, different shapes, moving or not moving, being able to assign those characteristics and not just use file names, it is extremely helpful from a marketing perspective. And what is your brand then? Your brand is the way it is used. And even myself now, I am representing somehow Photoware's brand. So the values and the feelings I'm communicating to you, that's what you're going to leave the impression of Photoware afterwards. So when making that presentation, it is very important that I will communicate the brand in the same way that Photoware wants it to be communicated. So being able to straight away from within PowerPoint to access the approved brand assets, it's extremely important. And the same applies to your graphical designer working with their favorite tools, Adobe InDesign, and being able to access their approved and most important assets from there. Gives a really great overview of your brand. So 6 tips, and there is again an overlapping thread here. They all talk about files. Why? Well, today, no matter what we do, even if it is a print ad, even if it is a banner on the street, it all starts digitally. That means it all starts with a file. And talking from experience of working in a marketing team for 20 years old company, having historical overview, it is really important for your brand. And why your files? Because loving your files is loving your brand. And showing that love and care about your files can really help you towards your common corporate goals. To be specific, I do believe that it's going to help you with your brand consistency. It's going to increase the content lifecycle in your content marketing strategies, and it's going to help you with speed to market. And how is that going to happen? Well, first and foremost, to ensure brand consistency with all those technology we have accessible, we need to make sure that technology talks to each other in a way that they coexist. And one example I would like to bring up is that you have, like as a retailer, you probably have a PIM, a Product Information Manager tool. And you probably have like a central space for your brand. And as your PIM has the goal to manage SKUs, sales data, deliver information, and etc., your digital asset management, your marketing tool, has the goal to store marketing and brand information, to build workflows, to build automation, to do editing of your content. But there is one thing that needs to live together in those two, and that's your product assets. That's your image, videos, and content that represents your brand and needs to belong to both of those systems. Increased content lifecycle. We create so enormous amount of content. Now in almost every marketing talk to, they talk about content marketing. And what does this mean? That we are creating a lot of content, but do we have the correct content infrastructure for it? Because consistency is not boring. Just look at Coca-Cola. Is it boring? No, it creates an association. It creates a feeling for your brand. So it's very important that you have this history that matters. And there is one of my favorite examples of how history can make a difference. How many of you can recognize that guy? Yeah, the internet, right? A meme? You've seen it on a meme? That's correct. That's how he's recognized most of the time today. But he is known as the most interesting man in the world. His name is Jonathan Goldsmith, and he has a Dos Equis in his hand. It's a beer brand. And Jonathan Goldsmith is a Bronx native and been in over 400 movies, theater plays, and film. And he's the face of that ad from a commercial in 2007, which Dos Equis at that time was a very low-price beer that usually college kids would have on parties. But they had such a big boost that even Carlsberg were having problems as a competitor. It's because they managed to make an ad live from 2007 until today, 2018, because they left that ad in the hands of the customers. They made a meme out of it. And what used to be like a legendary commercial of this guy on TV afterwards was brought to the internet in the same way and still lives in the hands of the consumers. And speed to market. If you have a full control of how you work and how you collaborate in your creatives and marketing teams, you're going to be able to automate things. Because you remember the omni-channel that we were talking and showing about? Well, exactly in those omni-channel strategies, we need to have an automation to help us being able to at once be at each channel where the customer is. And one example I want to bring up is also from a fellow customer that I'm not going to name. If you guess, it's for you. But this is a Christmas pudding. And these are different 6 photo shoots of a Christmas pudding. A retail brand from the UK found it very important that every year they bring that kind of Christmas feeling into the hearts of people by showing them the Christmas pudding and bringing them to their stores. And that worked for years, and they love it, and people want the picture of the Christmas pudding. But when it comes to the time to actually making the ad live, they used a couple of months because the photo of the pudding was missing. So they would need to gather every Christmas a team of photographers to do a photo shoot of a pudding in order to afterwards make a message. But being able to discover and have historical overview of their content, that everyone, no matter if the employee has left or the photographer has changed, that they have the same information. And afterwards, with automation, being able to just place the text that's relevant for 2018 and in one click distribute it, social media, their CMS and website, or their distribution tool for banners on the street. Speed to market, it is very important because, again, we're talking about those guys that experience everything through their phones and communicate their meaning. Those guys that are on so many different channels that we want to meet. But those people, those tech-savvy customers, they still buy with their hearts. So it is extremely important that we make a stand, that we make our brand stand for something. And I hope that I inspired some thoughts, or that at least you learned about some new trends. But I want you to leave at least with some key takeaways. First and foremost, if you're in a marketing team, get an overview. Or if you're not, just push your marketing team to have an overview and control of what represents their brand and how everyone across the organization works with those brands. And remember that the brand is the way it is used. Is the way it is used in the face of your employees, your marketing and creators, but also those users that they can interpret your brand. And get the right tools in order to achieve those 3 things: being brand consistent, improving content lifecycle, and speed to market. Because we do need to survive in omni-channel marketing and still stay on top of our brand. Thank you so much. I hope I inspired some ideas into you, but I want to also make another call to action before I leave you. You can get tomorrow at 12 at noon, you can get a Home Assistant, a Google Home Assistant, and you can test if your brand is there. It's very easy. You see the competition is not too big. And just go on PhotoWare, tag PhotoWare on the social media of your choice, make a post of any kind, use the hashtag Tech4Retail, and we're going to make a lucky draw of a Home Assistant for tomorrow. And that applies for all of you watching us online as well. Thank you so much, and have a great, lovely day.
Thank you, Radmila. Any questions about this topic? We'll be around for about half an hour mingling. So if you want to stay, keep in touch with us. We are here. Thank you very much for attention.
Thank you.